Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I am so thrilled to introduce Stephanie Herman, a former prima ballerina who has danced with Mikhail Baryshnikov and Rudolph Nureyev, and was a protégé of legendary choreographer George Balanchine. After suffering injuries, Stephanie had quite a long journey that has led to her creating her own Pilates ballet program. But her injuries haven't stopped her, and she's recently created her own one-woman ballet play that gives a unique insight into her life as a ballerina. So let's hear all about this extraordinary journey. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Savannah. It's so lovely meeting you and speaking with you today.
So great to hear from you. And you're in California at the moment.
Beautiful, sunny California.
Yes, we're not jealous at all here in the drizzly London. So let's go sort of right back to the beginning, and sort of before we talk about your current projects. You became a principal dancer at the age of 19, which is incredibly young, but tell us firstly why and how old were you when you started ballet in the first place?
I was actually 12 years old, which is kind of late. I was in junior high school in a big gym, a public junior high school in New York City, and I was doing crunches, and my gym teacher, Mrs. Roberts, came over to me as I was doing the crunches and was asking me if I would like to join her ballet group. And still continuing with my crunches, I said, but I don't dance. And she says, that's okay. After school at 3:00. And I said, okay. And that afternoon, I came to the after-school ballet program, and there was this girl, Erica, who did a pirouette on point. And I was just like, wow, how'd you learn how to do that? And she said, well, I go to the School of American Ballet. So I went home and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I want to go to School of American Ballet. And she said, okay. And she found out what was necessary. I needed to audition. And so she took me to the audition, and I wore a number, and they told me to point my toes and to jump over a rope and to listen to the music and be musical. And then they said, fine, you're in. Little did I know that this was the School of American Ballet, was George Balanchine's school, which was the New York City Ballet School. And I just walked right in there, luckily for Mrs. Roberts, my mother, and Erica. And that was the start.
That's quite an extraordinary, short, from not dancing until 13 and going to the school.
12. I'll give it another year. It's
12. And then going straight into the School of American Ballet. That's quite amazing.
Well, I have to share with you, when I was born, the doctor said to my mother he never saw a baby with such a beautiful arch and instep, because usually when you're born, it's not developed yet. And he says, oh my God, she should be a dancer.
Really?
So I guess I was destined. And my mom, who was a classical pianist, I must have it in my genes. I happened to be born with extreme turnout and flexibility and long legs and a pinhead, which are all the things that Balanchine loved. So there was a lot of natural ability that I came with, I think. But I think normally when a child is starting dance, they want you to start earlier so you can develop the flexibility, the feet, the turnout, and the musicality.
And tell us about your years with the School of American Ballet. Tell us about your training back in those days.
We used to get free tickets to the ballet, And I remember going and just like showing off. I too was a ballet dancer and walking with my turnout and thinking, gosh, I'm one of them, and the specialness, and seeing, Suzanne Farrell and Edward Villela and Jacques Dubois and Kay Mazzo and Patricia McBride and all these Allegra Kent, gorgeous ballerinas and male dancers, and the beauty is just, I fantasize, this is what I want to be when I grow up more than anything. And especially some of the roles that Suzanne Farrell danced, more of the adagio. I was just like, I want to do Apollo when I grow up. I want to do Symphony in C, second movement when I grow up. So I became a long-term goal-oriented person, or maybe I was, but that was my dream and I held on to it.
And how hard was the training back in the days, when you're sort of not in the theatre watching some of your favourite dance stars?
You're always being asked to do 250%. And I grew up that you have to do more, you have to do more. And sometimes I think the conflict for me was I am a people pleaser. And I was told in a group class, everybody, Russian ballet teachers, everybody, you must turn out more. So I would turn out. Little did I know that I had all this turnout already. I kept turning out more and more and more. And I just wanted to be such a good student and try really hard. And I think it gave me the level of expertise and expectation of myself to really strive to be as good as I can. I think the negative might have been that I became a perfectionist in some ways. And I think when I came to the ballet school, I was naive and I just loved to dance around or listen to my mother play the piano. And it's just, just feel the music. And sometimes in a ballet class, your brain is a left brain and right brain. And sometimes the right brain is, you just want to dance and listen to the music. And then the left brain is, but I got to turn out more and I got to point my toes more and I got to passe higher and I got to. So I think for me, now being a wiser woman, I've learned to meld the left brain and the right brain together better. But sometimes it was difficult because the left brain would sometimes take over. And when the left brain and the right brain come together is when you really have a good performance, or you just feel on top of everything.
And tell us about life after you graduated from the school. Where was your next step?
Well, everybody in the school felt, they all wanted to be in New York City Ballet. And by the time we got, you go to beginner class and then you go to A class and then B and then C. And by the time you're in D class, you're primed and ready for the company. And at that time, George Balanchine, when he started the company, I think he was really into long-legged, tall women. And by the time I got to the D class, I think he started choreographing a little faster stuff and was into this fast movement, like, and so he wanted dancers that were more allegro, quick movement, and not so much adagio. So he started taking dancers that were shorter. And I'm 5'9".
That's quite tall.
Yes, and on point, I've got big feet. It makes you, I don't know, I've never measured myself on point, but maybe 6 feet or something like that, or more. So I felt very hurt that I wasn't being taken, and I knew that I was good And the director of the school, Diana Adams, who also would dance roles kind of like my style, kept saying, oh, you're such a beautiful dancer. Don't worry, something's going to happen. And maybe you should start auditioning elsewhere. So sometimes I would take auditions elsewhere, but still take class. And then one day there were 3 directors that came into the D class to watch. And after class, Diana Adams said to me, can you come into my office? I went into her office and she said, you've just been accepted into 3 ballet companies, Australia, Canada, and Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow.
And she said, the good news about Geneva, Switzerland is George Balanchine. It's his company. He's the artistic director and he loves to just go over there and work with his dancers. And there's only 40 dancers in the company opposed to New York City Ballet, which has 110. And she said, there's another girl that got into that company too, who's your height. And you got into the other companies and the other girl didn't. So my friend Anya, who was the girl that got into the company, also said she really wanted to go. And I knew if I said no, I wasn't going to go to that company and go to another one, they wouldn't take her because they wanted the both of us to be opposite each other because of our heights. And I thought about it and I thought, well, you know, I would continue in the Balanchine style and be with this friend, and she would also get a job. So I decided to go to Balanchine's Geneva, Le Grand Théâtre Genève at the age of 19.
What a journey to make at just such a young age. And can I say, what a wonderful heart that you have to be so considerate of your lovely friend Anya. I hope you're still in touch with her because that's
yep, we are. We just spoke like 3 days ago.
Oh, that's amazing. So tell us about arriving in Geneva and tell us about working with Balanchine's company and his dance.
Well,
and becoming one of them yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. The plane ride, it was the first time I took a plane ride to Europe, and Anya and I were so excited. And in those days, the coach was a lot like business class is today, and they give you a menu, what you're going to eat. And we were just like, oh, this is so exciting. And the plane ride, it was like, we were just like 2 teenagers just getting very excited about this adventure we were going to go into. And then we arrived, and the director, Alfonso Cata, picked us up at the airport, and he says, oh, did you see who's on your plane? It's Greta Garbo. I go, oh, okay. And then he takes us to this place where he set us up in, which was a German home for girls. And it was in the old town of Geneva on top of the hill. And there was a church across the street, and every 15 minutes the bells would ring to let you know the time. And there were cobble streets, and coming from New York City, Manhattan, this was so different and beautiful and gorgeous. And I started walking around, and I'd see these guys shining the doorknobs of the doors, and I was like, oh my gosh, and cleaning up if like anything dropped on the ground, which is very different than New York. So it was all very, very, very exciting.
And tell us about your days with the company. What was it like for you?
There were dancers from all over the world. We had dancers from Finland, Romania, Paris, London, and a couple of us from New York. And it was very exciting because you got to meet all these different cultural dancers that all had the same vision of wanting to be dancers or good dancers. And it was the first time, you know, performing, learning a little bit about the depths of competition, and internally learning how to work within the company in that way, and also living in a place where I didn't really know the language that well. except l'addition, s'il vous plaît. So it was a growth. And there was a time, because we were living in a home for German girls, that my diet was different. And I never had trouble with weight because I could eat whatever I want. But now they were feeding me different foods, like cheese fondue, different cheeses. The chocolate bars were bigger, bread and butter, potatoes, sausages, and then in ballet class, I could wear sweatpants, and it kind of covers up anything that's going on. And one day my director called me into the office, and his assistant, Pierre, Pierre said, Alfonso wants you in the office. And so I came in, and the office is a 10 by 10, very small. And they said, we want you to get on that scale. I go, what? And they said, yes. And I said, no. And they go, yes. And I went, no. And they started chasing me around the room, which was very small. And I'm running around. And finally, Pierre grabs me, and Pierre was shorter. And I'm like, let go. I'll do this on my own. And so I got on the scale, and I was like, whoa, I gained 10 pounds. I couldn't believe it. And I was like in tears. And the director said, well, what are you going to do about this? I guess I'm going to lose it next week. And he goes, well, you don't have to lose it that fast, but I just want you to be aware that you've been gaining weight. And I said, I didn't even know I did. And he said, okay, well, take your time and just be aware. And I ran to the bathroom, and I just cried, and I just felt like I didn't even know that was happening. And oops, and there's my dog. Then what happened was I lost the weight, and then I started getting all these solos and principal roles.
That's quite an extraordinary sort of snippet, isn't it, in terms of what it was like as a young dancer arriving in the European city. And it's funny enough, I mean, these days it still happens that 10 pounds as soon as you arrive in London is somehow still seems to attach itself to almost anyone, not just dancers. It's quite funny. But you said you got soloist roles really quickly. Must have happened quite quickly, becoming a principal at just 19. What did that feel like? That must have been quite a lot of responsibility for yourself.
It was huge. I remember once George Balanchine came, and we were performing a ballet called Four Temperaments, and I was dancing in the corps at that. Corps was 4 dancers in this ballet. And he told Alfonso he wanted me to do the lead, choleric, but it was going to be in 3 days. And like, oh my God, my first big role, and I've got 3 days to prepare for it. And the role choleric is very strong and dynamic, and I'm more adagio and lyrical. And I was like, I was freaking out. And it finally came, and I did it. And I don't think I did it as well as I could have done it because of all that pressure. And it was really difficult. So that wasn't such a fun experience.
No, learning that role in 3 days is quite an ask of a young dancer, any dancer, in fact. That's quite an ask of you.
Well, I think once you do more big roles, you're used to, quickly learning something, and you don't feel the pressure of like, I'm the prima ballerina in this part. When you're in the corps, yes, you do want to be the best you can, but all of a sudden getting the big role, there's another emotional element that you have to deal with. But I think when you're used to dealing with that as time went on, like I could just jump into a role easily. And I think that's true in life with anybody who's doing something and then all of a sudden their boss is asking them to do something different. If they're not used to jumping into something new, it's frightening. But I think once you get more used to being spontaneous and jumping into things, you can just jump right in.
And tell us about your experience of working with Balanchine. I mean, I'm almost desperate to sort of hear what that was like from a dancer's point of view. I mean, we've been, obviously reading so much, about his work over time, and of course, there's been the incredible gala recently to celebrate his works, and his work is available now on YouTube, and dancers get to research. But tell us about your experience.
Oh, every time I worked with him, it was absolutely magical. You have to remember, growing up at the School of American Ballet, he was God. And so working with God, he could do no wrong. And the respect that he got was huge and well-deserved. He was a master. He was so musical, and I just resonated with his style so well. And he was kind. I remember there is a story that once Patricia Neary, when I was with the Grand Théâtre de Genève for 3 years, and then Patricia Neary took it over. And when Patricia Neary took it over, she wanted me to do this role, the principal role of bugaku, which is a Japanese marriage ceremony. And then the night of, the honeymoon. And she said, Balanchine is going to come and work with us, but he's going to leave after the opening. And I don't think he's going to want you to dance the lead because you're tall. And he made the role for Allegra Kent, who was like maybe 5'4" or 5'5", and I'm not. She said, so what I'll do is I want you to dance the second night when he's gone, and he won't even know you're doing the role, but I know you're going to be fabulous. I said, okay. And she said, and when he's here for dress rehearsal, what's going to happen is Cheryl Wrench will do the dress rehearsal. She's doing the lead of bugaku on the opening night. And then Balanchine will go to lunch. And then when he's at lunch, we'll have you do the dress rehearsal on stage. So I said, okay. So Cheryl did it. And then it was over, and Balanchine said, okay, dear, I'm going to go to lunch now. And he went off, and then I put on my costume and went on stage, and Pat said, okay, let's start. And we put on the music, and I started dancing. And then all of a sudden, Balanchine comes back from the wings onto the stage, and he goes, oh, I forgot something. And then he looks at me, and he looks at Pat, and he goes, what's she doing there? And we both froze, oh, shoot, he's going to be so angry. And she said, well, I decided Stephanie should dance second cast of this. And he goes, oh, let me see. So I started dancing, and he goes, oh, fabulous, let me help. And he just spent the next hour working with me and taking my foot to my head, and, oh, good, I want bigger, yes, beautiful. And it was such a special moment.
Oh, that's just, I can visualize everything that you are saying. This is just wonderful. Was that your only sort of time, or was he around?
Oh, no. Lots of times. I mean, when we did Serenade, we were 3 principal dancers and a male dancer. And there was one time when we had to run one by one to the male dancer and have the male dancer hug us, and then we do a back bend into his arm. And we stay there till the next dancer comes, runs, hug, falls back into the arm and my body. And then the third dancer does the same thing. And the Balanchine said, no, darling, dear. He's talking to the male dancer. He says, you must you must hug them like you're loving them. And you've got 3 women. How lucky could you get? You've got to own this.
That's so wonderful. And did you dance, being that's his company where he's the artistic director, did you dance just his works, like the pas de deux, and you mentioned the 4 temperaments already, and Symphony C, and you danced all of these works?
I did Agon. I was known for Agon mostly, and Symphony in C, second movement, Suzanne Farrell's roles. And there was one time that I got to do Apollo, which was my dream come true, and Midsummer's Night Dream, Tatiana. I was very lucky.
And what did it feel like dancing Apollo, as you say, was your dream?
I think I like to share my stories so other people can understand the realities of what goes on as a ballerina, that it's not just the ballerina dancing, bowing, getting roses, but there's reality behind that. So I knew I was going to be dancing Apollo, and we were going on tour, and it was my dream come true, but my calf started hurting. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor in Switzerland gave me prednisone. And it started getting better, but I don't normally take medications and pills. And as a dancer, I think you're very in tune with your body, and you're very in tune with, some dancers are more in tune with their emotions and their feelings and their everything, because to be a ballerina, you have to control your body through being in tune with it. So I kept taking this prednisone, and I started getting emotional. And it was kind of like hormonally, I felt off. And it was like a dream come true. My calf was sort of hurting me, but it was getting, a little better. And then we go on tour. We were in Germany. And that night, I was going to dance Apollo, the lead, Terpsichore, and then I was going to do Agon, the pas de deux, the lead, and then Western Symphony. So it was a lot to do. And I performed Apollo that night, and it was like a dream come true. It was really fabulous. And then I did Agon, and it was great. And then I did Western Symphony. And then afterwards, we had one more symphony, another ballet. I can't remember, symphony, and it wasn't Symphony in C. It was Sinfoniata. I forget the name of it. But anyway, at that ballet, all of a sudden my calf started hurting, and my friend. I came off stage, and I was going to go back on again. And I said to my friend Debbie, it's like, oh, my calf is killing me. I can hardly move on it. And she said, well, don't worry, Stephanie, just go out there, move your arms beautifully. You're alone on stage. No one will ever know. And so I did. I went out. I didn't do the bottom half, what I had to do, but I was just, doing arms and smiling and pretending, oh, everything is fine. And then, we bow, and then I come off stage, and then I hear the director saying, what happened? What happened? She ruined the ballet. Stephanie ruined the ballet. What happened? And I'm freaking out. So I run into the core dressing room, and I hide underneath a dressing table, thinking, oh, I'm so scared that I ruined the ballet. And then I turn the light off, and then everybody's looking for me, and I hear, where is she? Where is she? I can't find her. Did you look in her room? Yes, I did. She's not there. And her, the assistant said, I can't find her either. And then all of a sudden, Pat Neary walks into this dressing room, and she looks under the table, and she goes, what are you doing there? I said, I didn't mean to ruin the ballet. My calf hurt. She goes, oh, you poor dear. Come on, let's take you to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital in Germany. And they said, oh, you have a torn calf muscle.
My goodness.
And this German woman comes with 2 pails of mud. She's holding 2 pails, this big German nurse woman has 2 pails of mud in her hand. And I'm just sitting on the table, and she walks in and she says in German, oh my gosh, what happened? Did you break both your feet? Because as a ballerina, our feet just normally drop down. And she goes, oh, you poor thing. I said, no, that's just my feet. And then she wraps the mud on my calf. The doctor comes in, and Pat Neary is there. And the doctor says, she can't dance. She's got a torn calf. And Pat Neary says, well, but she's got to dance tomorrow. And so tomorrow, we were only there for 2 days. Tomorrow, the second cast of Apollo was Debbie. She was dancing the roles. So we didn't have to worry about that, but I still had Agon in Western Symphony. And they said, well, she doesn't have an understudy for Agon. And the only understudy that we could get for Western Symphony is the assistant director who hasn't danced in a couple of years and, was a little bit heavier. And so I said, well, I'll tell you what, if you give me an injection, I'll do it. I said, but if the injection wears off, I want you to promise me, Pat, that you will jump on, because you know the role. Not that Pat's been performing, but she knows it. And that, your sister can do Western Symphony. And they promised that would be okay. So they had to give me the injection in the morning because that's when the doctor could do it, which was not a good idea. They probably should have given it to me right before the performance. And then first ballet, we do the warm-up before the ballet, and I'm doing great. And then the first ballet, Apollo, good. Then intermission. And then 5 minutes till showtime for Agon. I'm, on stage warming up and everything. And I've got my partner Jonas there. And then all of a sudden, it wore off. I couldn't put any weight on my foot at all. Mm-hmm. And I'm like thinking, okay, how can you do a pas de deux when you can't put weight on your? And I just said to my partner, I can't put weight on my foot. And he said, well, that's it. You're not performing. And, he took care of me right away. He says, Jonas Kage, you're not performing. And so we called the assistant director, and the assistant director was not very happy with me because that meant she had to do the Western Symphony, which, I felt bad that she had to do it. And Pat Neary, they had to call her from the audience, and she ran and she put her leotard and tights on and lipstick, and she ran on and did it. But that was a story.
Wow, that's extraordinary. It's interesting, how I wonder whether or not things like that happen today. Of course, dance health and the support that dancers have physically and emotionally is obviously, changed enormous amounts of time over time, and the sort of medical support that dancers get nowadays is probably, I would say, different. I would hope that we wouldn't be people hurting themselves quite so much, but then dancers, like you say, you're perfectionists and you push yourself and you don't ever let anyone down.
Yeah, no, I think as a person also, I'm the same way, or I was. I'm a little bit maturing, I'm hoping, where, you say yes. You just say yes. And you just want to please. And I think now, as I mature in life, I'm learning it takes courage to say no, and it takes courage to be who you are, especially if you're a people pleaser, because you're scared people might not like you if you're not pleasing them. But I think in the long run, what happens is you have more communication with people, so people know who you are and vice versa. And if people like you for who you are, then you could be who you are.
And as a dancer, that must make you perhaps more authentic as a dancer as well. If you're
Totally, yes. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Because when you go on stage and you are who you are and you have the confidence to be who you are, then it projects. And there's another interesting story.
Please.
You know, I am older now. I'm on the fence whether or not to share my age, but after my performing life, I did get married, and I adopted a beautiful daughter from China, and was a mother, and I developed this exercise fitness program called Pilates Ballet, where I therapeutically like to help people that have never danced, people that, you know, are professional dancers. And I have a very unique way of looking at the body and understanding the body, so I can see, like with my x-ray visions, if somebody's saying their hip hurts, I look at the body and I go, well, it's because you're supinating on your right foot, and which means that you're on the outside of the right foot. And I think if you allowed your arch to come down a little bit, then what's going to happen, your inner thigh will start getting strengthened, and that will put less pressure on your hip. And when I work with people, I like to educate them neuropathically how to own these specific muscles. I don't just say, okay, do 10 of these and 10 of those, but like, can you find that muscle? Can you feel it? And then you can own it. And then once you own it, you activate it, which is all part of a ballerina's education also. So I developed Pilates Ballet, and I was a mother, and I was a wife, and I have a great life. But there was this little part of me that kept itching to want to perform again. And I realized, okay, my daughter's going to go to college next year, and maybe I should do something about this. So a dear friend of mine said that she would give me acting classes as a gift. And she would come with me because I couldn't drive. I was such a good driver because I learned how to drive at the age of 43. And so she said, I'll take you to San Francisco, which is about an hour away, and we'll take acting lessons together. So we did. And in acting class, there was an exercise where we had to stand on a box, one at a time. And everybody in the class, like 17 students, had to say all the wonderful things about you. And you had to repeat it, and you had to own it. And if the class felt you weren't owning it, they would repeat it over and over and over again till they felt you owned it. So like they would say, you're beautiful. And I go, I'm beautiful. They go, you're beautiful. I'm beautiful. You're beautiful. I'm beautiful. Till they felt I owned it. And then they'd go on, you're wise. I'm wise. You're smart. You're nice. You're this. And then they said, you're talented. I could not own I'm talented. And they kept at me, you're talented. I'm like, I'm talented. And they kept at me and kept saying it. And everyone one at a time would say, you're talented. You're talented. And I just felt I couldn't own it. And tears started going down my cheeks. And I started thinking, why am I not owning this? And then finally I said, with courage, I'm talented. And they said, good. And I walked off the box. And later on, I started thinking, what happened? Why couldn't I own I'm talented? And then I started realizing that, you know, I worked with Balanchine and Nureyev and Baryshnikov, and they're talented. And I'm always striving to be better and better and better. And so to take the moment to really own you're talented doesn't really happen. And I started thinking, okay, I'm going to share my age.
Yes, do it. You'll be inspiring so many others.
Well, I just turned 68 years old.
My
So
goodness.
I was taking the acting class when I was 66 and 67. And I started thinking, well, gee, if I can't own my talent and here I want to be an actress, then it's not going to happen because you got to own it. And if you own it, like we were saying before, if you own your truth, then it projects on stage. So I started thinking, okay, I need to own this. So I went to see Baryshnikov. He did a one-man show with a friend. And I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, wow, that's so great that he can do this, you know? And then I started thinking, well, could I do it? I go, no, I'm not Baryshnikov. I can't do that. And I go, wait a minute. I've got to own my talent. Am I owning my talent by saying, no, I can't do that? And maybe I can do that. So I thought, all right, I'm going to take charge. I'm going to own my talent. And I'm going to do a one-woman show. And I went to this theater and I proposed an idea that I do a one-woman show. And they loved it. And they said, oh, we have an opening in 3 months. I go, great. Little did I think, moxie and guts, it was just an idea. I had no idea what I was going to do. It was just a fantasy, an idea that I thought I could do. And then I walked away thinking, oh my God, what did I just do? So I tried writing and I realized I've never done this before. So I found a script writer, which was not easy. That took a process. And then I found through friends of friends, a script writer, and the script writer said, write everything you can. So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. She edited it and put it down into, like a 3-act short film, play. And I was so proud. Yay, I've got it. And now I've got to, choreograph in this. And I brought it to a friend, Jennifer Van Seal, who happens to write scripts for Hollywood and also wrote several books on how to do screenwriting. So I showed it to her very proudly. And she goes, well, Stephanie, that is not an A+. It's a B+. It's a B or a B+. What do you want? Do you want an A+ or do you want a B or B+? I go, of course I want an A+. So, well, it's very nice, but it doesn't have the guts and glory, the depth, like Casablanca. And so she said she would work with me to try to get the guts and the glory out of me. And she kept asking me to go deeper and deeper. And I did not know how to go deeper. I thought I was going deeper, but what I was doing was giving more details. And she kept saying, no, we want it deeper. And I kept staying up all night and writing. Meanwhile, I have 1 month left before my performance. I haven't choreographed anything. I don't have a script. I'm freaking out. What am I going to do? I'm like in tears. And I kept writing and writing. And she kept saying, we don't have it yet. We don't have it. And I just cried to her on the phone. I said, I can't do it. And she said, well, do you want me to take over and take charge? I said, please. And so she said, okay, I'll take your story. And overnight, she rewrote the whole thing and it had the depth and everything. And then she said, let's have a meeting with the closest people in your life, like my acting coach and my husband and this photographer who's done photographs and videos of me and her. And we all got together and we were saying, okay, what can we write? What can we write that makes this even deeper? And everybody had something to say. And then all of a sudden my husband said, well, what about that time when you were, injured and you were back in New York and you couldn't dance, so you took this job in La Masquerade performing for bar mitzvahs and you had to dress up in these costumes. And I started laughing hysterically with tears coming down my eyes saying, oh, I can't do that. And everybody said, yes, you can. That's it. That's the deep that we're looking for. So Jennifer, and my husband and I, started talking through all night and we got the script done with Jennifer's great expertise. And now I had 3 weeks left to choreograph it and put it all together, and to also do PR, and to find, I had a vision that I wanted a mirror on the stage, and I wanted a film in the background. And so Azita, Gandjei, and Kador Lawrence were in charge of the video background, and I got them. Sheila was helping me as an assistant with the choreography, and my friend Shannon Stowe also, and we pulled it together. And the night of, I got there. And there's so many other stories I can't tell you all because I'm writing my memoirs now. And I'm trying to write another memoir that I can turn into a film or something. And the memoir is going to start on the night of that performance. But it turned out that it was sold out, 300 seats. And I went on stage, and my goal when I went on stage was, I have to be honest. I have to share my talent, and I have to have the courage, even if it's not 250% technically great. And that was my goal of the night. And I did it. I just enjoyed it. I danced who I was, and I was sharing my love, my music, how I interpreted the music and the story. And I got standing ovation and flowers thrown to me, and it was like my farewell. Huh?
To celebrate your talent.
Yes, and it kind of felt like my farewell performance that I never had, and it was wonderful.
I've watched the video, obviously, and I was so moved by it, and it is deep and it is honest, and it's remained with me as well. And, we live in a time now where you see so many videos, they flick through, and it has remained with me, actually, that piece of work. And I think it's extraordinary. And I'd love for you just to tell that story, that moment where you had found yourself injured as a dancer, and your journey back to New York. Tell us about that.
So I got injured as a dancer twice in my life, actually 3 times in my life. And the first time was when I decided I wanted to, it was 3 years at the Grand Théâtre Genève, and I felt we weren't performing enough. And I was, at prime 21, I really wanted to perform more. So I was going to get the courage to go to my director's office and tell him I was going to quit. So I went up to his office, and he wasn't there. And then I go back down to the rehearsal room, and I find out I get the lead, one of the leads in Showtime, I can't even remember the name of the show something. I can't remember the name of it, but it was Anthony Tudor from New York was in to work with us, and then he started working with me, and it was very exciting. And I thought, well, maybe things are going to change. Maybe we're going to perform more. Maybe this, maybe that. Maybe I shouldn't quit. And while I'm, lifting my leg up high and doing back bends with my partner holding me, and I demi-point, and then all of a sudden my foot slips, and my knee goes one way and my foot goes the other way, and I fall to the ground, and I'm looking at my kneecap, and it's on the wrong side of my body.
Oh, goodness.
And I'm in such pain, and everybody runs to me in a circle, and 40 dancers are just like staring at me, and I'm like saying, like, I'm crying such pain because my kneecap was not where it should be, and they're all just staring at me like nobody knew what to do. And I just looked at them and looked at my knee, and I don't know, but instinctively I pushed my knee back into its alignment. And then 2 of the male dancers lifted me up and put me on a chair, and they put ice on, and then they brought me to the hospital, and they found out that I tore the cross ligaments under my kneecap and the ACL. And they put me in a cast from my ankle to the top of my thigh, which is I've got long legs, so it's a very big cast. And at that time, I was living with Anya, and we had a duplex with a spiral staircase that was very small and narrow. And so they took me home, and I have to go upstairs, which is the bedroom. And the only way to get upstairs was by my tushy and to circle around and lift my leg up that was in a cast to get me around. And I finally got into the bed, and I decided I was going to go back home. But it was interesting. Yes, I fell because the floor was slippery. But my mind also was in conflict. I was going to quit. Should I stay? So there was a lot going on. And then I decided to go back home. And when I went back home, it was a different, I've been 3 years as living on my own as a principal ballerina, and now I'm back as the youngest kid in the family, and my mother and father telling me what to do, and it's just, wait a minute, nobody's told me except for the director what to do. And again, emotionally, what's going to happen to me? Am I ever going to dance again? Who am I if I'm not a dancer?
It must have been hard, actually.
It was very hard. It was cultural shock again, coming back to Manhattan. And, going back to Manhattan, I was a dancer, but I wasn't a dancer. So if I wasn't a dancer, who was I? And my mother luckily found Carola Trier, who was the first disciple of Joseph Pilates. And Carola worked with me, and she actually got me back stronger than I was before I got injured. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, Pilates, this is fabulous. Like, I can now be choleric. I can be strong, and also adagio. But, that time was really hard because even though I could dance, I wasn't going to go back to Switzerland, and I had to find a company. What was I going to do? I'm still 5'9" and 6'1" on point. And, even though I'm a principal dancer, you need to have a male dancer tall enough to dance with me. So I auditioned for Pennsylvania Ballet. And Barbara Weisberger was the director, and she was at the audition. And after half the audition, I got booted out. And I went into the dressing room, and I was just so like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And Barbara walks in to the dressing room, and she comes over to me, and she said, I really need to talk to you. She said, you are the most beautiful dancer I have ever seen. And I don't want you to think that we didn't take you because you weren't good enough. She said, but we don't have a male dancer tall enough for you. And that's what we would want, was you to get all the lead roles. And I don't want you to walk away thinking it's because you're not a good dancer. And I hugged her, and I walked away thinking, oh, this is fabulous. And then I realized, but I don't have a job. And then I would audition for other companies, and it was, oh, you're gorgeous, but you're too tall. And it was like, what am I going to do? And then I, had to take these odd jobs. And one of them was with La Masquerade, and, getting into a tennis racket and dancing with the bar mitzvah boy. And it's kind of humiliating. Yeah. And, then I joined this group called Career Transitions for Dancers. And they gave me one-on-one help with trying to discover who could I be if I'm not a dancer, and who am I if I'm not a dancer. And I spent a year in exploration internally and emotionally, and took on some, telemarketing jobs, and still working with the Masquerade. And finally, Pat Neary calls me up and says, would you like to dance with our company? I took over the company were performing more in Switzerland. And I said yes. And so that's how I came back to Switzerland again. And then Pat Neary brought the company from Geneva to Zurich, which now is German speaking. So I do know a little German. I do know French. And so those are some of my stories.
Yeah, it's no wonder that you're writing a memoir and thinking of a film, and it would be absolutely wonderful to read your entire life, because I could sit and listen to them all night, and to see a film being made of a female dancer would be absolutely wonderful as well. And speaking of amazing dancers, you, as you mentioned before, you danced with Mikhail, Baryshnikov and Nureyev. You must tell us about those. So let's start with your dancing with Baryshnikov first.
I think you guys should watch Ballerina One Woman Play.
Yes, absolutely.
Film, which actually I just wanted to share. That film has been accepted into 6 film festivals, and I just won the Platinum Award, Gold Awards for choreography, Best Drama Short, and it's very exciting, and I'm looking for places to screen it and guest teach. But it will be on YouTube, Ballerina One Woman Play, or on my website, pilatesballet.com, if you want to view it. And I tell stories about Baryshnikov and Nureyev. So I don't know if I want to ruin it, but I will share that when I was a teenager, I played hooky from school in order to get tickets to see Nureyev dance and perform. I got into trouble, but luckily I was able to go and watch him, and I saw him fly off of the wings, and just, he not only was technically beautiful and a giant jumper, and he was emotionally dramatic, and there was just so much beauty when the chemistry between him and Margot Fonteyn was fabulous. Little did I know that 20 years later I would be dancing the lead with him. So that was like a dream come true, and I felt like the second he walked into our studio to see who he was picking, there was like this chemistry between us. I couldn't even describe. It was like our souls were connected. It wasn't sexual, at all. It was like we didn't have to speak, but we kind of felt each other. And he picked me to be his mother in this ballet, and I felt so honored. And I, too, feel as a dancer, I was also emotionally dramatic. And in this role, I was able to act, but I didn't feel it was acting, because I felt in the moment I was this mother that was getting angry at my son. And he choreographed the anger movements and everything. And when he would come to hug me and run to me, we both were there. We were in the moment. I was the mother. He was the son. He was coming to me. And we were there. We felt it. We owned it. And it was so magical.
What an extraordinary opportunity, but to have that in your life, as an artist and as a dancer, how absolutely extraordinary. And like you say, everyone should definitely watch Ballerina One Woman Play, which will be on YouTube and on pilatesballet.com. And tell us about Baryshnikov quickly. We've got a short little, don't worry about being short.
Well, Baryshnikov is Russian. I am part Russian heritage and Romanian. And when I was with Nureyev, I almost felt like, because of something in my DNA from being from Russia was the same as something in his DNA. And when I met Baryshnikov, it was kind of the same thing. And we were so excited he was coming, and he walks into the studio and he looks around to see where he's going to stand. for the ballet class, and he stands right behind me. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like trying to be very professional and do everything right, thinking, oh, I can't do anything wrong. And, and he would keep saying to me, I don't understand what the step was. And I tried very hard to be like, okay, it's 4 tendu front, passe, coupe back, développé to the side, soutenu. And he goes, yes. And this kept going on and on and on. And like every step he would, excuse me. And after a while, I started realizing, I think he's flirting with me. And, he said it one more time, and I'm very playful. And I just turned around and I said, will you pay attention? And we just giggled, and that was kind of the start of something very magical that our friendship had.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that you cheekily told him off.
It took a couple of steps to do it.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. But we must also talk about founding your own company. You've founded more than one in your time, and your Pilates ballet is taking off a huge storm, or continuing to. So tell us about your experience of becoming an entrepreneur and a businesswoman yourself. And no doubt you have brought many an attribute from your life as a dancer into your business world.
Yes. As I said, I've been injured majorly, maybe 4 times in my life. And with every injury, again, you go into, who am I as a person? What am I going to be if I can't walk, or if I can't this, or if I can't dance, or if I'm in pain for the rest of my life? And you're always asking yourself, and then you're always searching for the right doctor, the right physical therapist to understand you and to listen to you. And I think there were 3 years of my life where I was injured for 3 full years. And it went from a back injury to a knee injury. So 1.5 years back, 1.5 years knee. And I was not really dancing, but I was working with Pilates, and also found Julio Horvath with gyrotonic suspension system, working with him directly. And I couldn't even sit because the pain was so bad. So I never went to movies. I never went out to dinner. I would have to lie down in a cab to get somewhere. And again, searching my soul. Who am I? Who am I going to be in my life? And I remember Julio came over for dinner once, and we had a lot of wine with his girlfriend, and he said, I think I can help you. And I said, okay. He says, but it's going to hurt. And I go, okay, I had enough wine. Do what you want to do. And he punched as hard as he could on my spine. I saw stars. And then I stood up, and I had no pain in the back. And it was just amazing. But the next morning I woke up and the pain was in my knee. So then I had okay, now what do I do with my knee? And so it took 1.5 years. And then I finally found the right physical therapist who told me, what you're doing is you have to strengthen your knee in a certain area that nobody else said before. And during those 3 years, I started researching ways of curing myself, kinesiology, learning about the anatomy. And I think that experiencing that helped me understand the body even deeper, because as a ballerina, you do understand the body a lot. But now I understood more of the anatomy and the bone rhythms and how your bones work within its joints. And if it's not working properly, it could cause compensation and pain. So I started developing the Pilates ballet and really therapeutically helping people who are injured understand why their body was compensating, which muscles were not properly activating, and what they needed to activate. So when I was working with dancers, and when I work with dancers, they understand when I tell them, oh, your adductor, your inner thigh muscles are not really activating. Your VMO, the muscle right around the kneecap, needs to be strengthened. You need to find it. This is how you can find it. And they would quickly understand what I'm talking about. But when I work with people that haven't danced, they don't know how to find certain muscles. You know, like if you're trying to find your abs or your right side of your ab, your internal oblique, you can't just say, okay, try to contract that muscle. They look at you like you're crazy. And so a physical therapist might say, okay, let's do crunches to find it. You know, but what happens is, I think people who are injured and trying to find certain muscles to help get strengthened, they just do, like Nike says, just do it. They just do the 10 crunches, but they're not neuropathically owning which specific muscle they have to own. And that's what I feel is different about my work with people, is I really try to educate somebody to find the muscle, educate them. What is the muscle? Okay, this is your internal oblique, and the internal oblique wraps around your pelvis. And let me show you a picture of what the skeleton looks like and the anatomy of the motion and what does the skeleton do. And then I have them touch it, and I say, can you feel that? And they go, yeah, I can sensory feel it. I said, can you try to contract it? And they go, well, no, not really. And then I give them certain exercises, like 3 different ones, till they start going, I feel it now. And so I said, good. So now you neuropathically, your brain can start strengthening that specific area. So you will build more muscle fiber in that particular area, opposed to a whole bunch of group muscles trying to get strong. I try to break down specifically each individual muscle group that will work together with another muscle or a skeleton, part of the skeleton, that will help a person get out of their compensation patterns.
Wow, that's extraordinary. And I say that because I've had chronic back pain for about maybe 16 years. So I have to say, I wish you lived in London.
I will be coming to London in March.
Well, it's a hard life living with pain. Pain is,
yes.
It's a unique experience, I think, on a short-term but also on a long-term basis, psychologically as well as physically. And I love the way that you talk about owning the pain almost in a psychological way, or in a way that isn't just physical. And so it's quite an interesting way of approaching it. I think not what everyone does. I'm not sure I've ever had a physio tell me that. You gave us your age, 68, obviously, look 68, and you've had an extraordinary career. And I love that you have created this film at this point in your life, which, as you mentioned, has won a gold award from the Hollywood Independent Filmmakers Award and others, which I think is just so very inspiring. And I'm really interested in sort of, the life after, or the life beyond being a professional ballerina, and particularly someone of your caliber, but for all dancers, looking back over your extraordinary career, what sort of advice do you have for those dancers who are facing retirement, or who are facing the decision to perhaps either physically or otherwise that they are going to be stepping off the stage?
I almost feel that when they are in their dance school, it'd be wonderful if the teachers educate the kids on career transitions, because whether you make it or you don't make it, you're still going to go through a career transition. And, kids go to college to try to figure out who they're going to be. And I think dancers have the dream when they're young. and they know they want to be. And in order to be a dancer, you have to give your heart, mind, body, and soul so much. So you have no room really to start thinking about, oh, what am I going to do if I can never dance or things like that. And I almost wish, I know that they have in Los Angeles and New York career transitions for dancers, and I want to connect with them and tell them that, you know, what I might want to do is to do some kind of a fundraiser to help support them and kids going through career transitions and dancers going through career transitions, as I also become a role model to others in some way, and also to 68-year-olds that you can still move on. It doesn't mean that you have to stop. And I just think it's something that kids should think about. Just think about it. Don't be afraid to think about it. You know, I think if you want to be a ballerina, you're so scared to think, oh, what else can I be? Well, keep thinking and holding on to the dream that you want to be a ballerina. Don't let go of that dream, but be realistic and think, okay, there might be a time when I can't. What else do I like? Do I like cooking? Do I want to be a chef? Do I like painting? Do I want to be a graphic designer? Kind of explore your different talents. And don't be afraid to just think or fantasize, what else could I be? When the time comes, so that you prepare yourself, kind of like when older people prepare themselves for retirement. What am I going to do when I retire? Where am I going to live? You know, it's kind of, don't be afraid to think about it. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, and it doesn't have to happen right away, but it's not going to hurt you to think about it.
Well, that is absolutely amazing advice, Stephanie. I've absolutely loved listening to your stories. And everyone listening around the world, get onto pilatesballet.com and watch this beautiful video, Ballerina, a one-woman play with Stephenie Herman, because it is absolutely fantastic and so deserving of all of the awards and accolades that you're getting with this. And what an inspiring journey and what an inspiring story. Thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.